And do you see that customer in this room?
Yes, sir. The lady who bought the eye drops is in the courtroom now.
Would you point her out to the court, please?
That lady there, the defendant.
Thank you. Now, there's just one more question. Was that bottle clearly marked poison?
Why, yes, sir. Right on the label it said, poison, for external use only.
Jason, you're all right.
What happened?
You were telling me about your dream.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scream.
There's nothing to be sorry about. That's why you're here, to tell me about it so that I can help you.
Can you help me?
I can try, but I'll have to know a great deal more, of course.
There's nothing more to know. It's always the same dream.
Yes.
It begins in different ways, but it always ends the same. I'm standing in front of the curtain, and I'm terrified, because I know whatever is behind it, it's evil and horrible.
But what is it?
I don't know. I can never make myself look behind the curtain.
Go on.
And then when it begins to move all by itself, and I'm just about to see what's behind it, I wake up screaming.
Well, now, do you feel able to go on and tell me more about your dream?
There isn't anything more to tell.
There's always more to tell. Try putting yourself back in the dream and say anything that comes into your head.
But I've told you everything.
What are you wearing in this dream?
Something white.
Go on.
It's no use. I can't remember anymore.
Doesn't matter. You will. Eventually.
If I do, how will that help?
Everything we can learn about it helps. I don't have to tell you that dreams are merely reflections of things that happen to us when we're awake. We disguise them in our dreams, but that's what they are.
You mean the curtain is only a symbol of something I'm afraid of in real life?
Why should you say it so scornfully?
I didn't mean to, really. It's just that everyone is so full of catchphrases these days, symbols and complexes and all the rest of it.
And you don't believe in any of it?
Doctor, there isn't anything in my life that I'm afraid of. It's only in my dreams.
You're too intelligent not to realize they're related.
How?
That's for you to tell me.
But how can I if I don't know?
It takes time. But let's talk more generally for a bit. Walk around, sit down, make yourself comfortable. Let's see. You live in Brookfield.
Yes.
You're married? Happily?
Very.
What does your husband do?
He's an artist.
Successful?
Oh, not very, but he will be eventually. He's terribly good.
Do you have any money problems?
No. We both have incomes of a sort. Not very big ones, but enough to get by on comfortably.
It's always helpful. Do you have any children?
We've been married only 2 months, Doctor.
Oh, I didn't realize that it was that recent. Mrs. Jason, you say that you've been bothered by this dream for some time now. When did it happen first? Do you remember?
8 months ago, I think. Long before I was married, if that's what you're hinting at.
I'm not hinting at anything. Did anything in particular happen to you 8 months ago?
No, nothing. Honestly, Dr. Edwards, you must believe me. There isn't anything in my life the least bit unusual. Certainly nothing I'm afraid of.
It doesn't necessarily have to be something you're afraid of. It could be something that you're guilty about. Something that you've done that you're ashamed of. Therefore, you won't allow yourself to think of it when you're awake.
I've never done anything I'm ashamed of, Doctor.
Lucky you. Most of us have.
I'm sorry that did sound pompous. I only meant nothing important enough to cause all this. Well, thank you for listening to me anyway. I think it helped. Goodbye.
Mrs. Jason, does this mean that you're not coming back?
There's no point to it. We don't seem to be getting anywhere.
Perhaps we are. Perhaps that's why you're so anxious suddenly to leave.
That's not it at all.
Well, you're the only one who can decide that. If you do change your mind, just call me.
Well, if I should, I will. Goodbye. 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 Your telephone messages, Doctor.
Thank you. Oh, you might put this in the inactive file.
All right. Mrs. Ralph Jason.
What's the matter?
Nothing, except I thought she was dead. It was in the papers.
Must be another Miss Jason. That's not such an uncommon name.
But it's the same place, too. She was married to an artist living in Brookfield. She committed suicide.
And this must be the second Mrs. Jason. She didn't mention that.
I'll bet she didn't. Sure didn't waste any time. Can't be more than 6 or 8 months since his first wife committed suicide.
8 months.
Is that you, Letty?
Yes, Ralph, it's me.
Hi, I was beginning to wonder when you were going to get back. What's the matter?
What do you mean?
You look all in. Do you feel all right?
I'm just tired. Too much shopping, I guess.
What you need is a martini. Very cold and very dry. As a matter of fact, I was just icing the glasses.
Sounds wonderful.
You, do anything else in town besides shop?
No, was I supposed to?
You said something about seeing a doctor.
I decided not to. It seemed silly to make such a fuss over a bad dream.
Here you go.
Thank you, darling. Tastes good.
Betty, what really is the matter?
I told you nothing. I'm just tired.
Okay. Today you're tired. What is it all the other days?
I don't want to talk about it now.
But we have to talk about it. Is it us, Letty? Was it a mistake for us to get married?
Oh, no. You mustn't think that. It hasn't anything to do with us.
Well, that's pretty silly, isn't it? It couldn't be anything else.
Ralph, I love you more than anyone I've ever loved in my whole life.
I love you. But you've been miserable ever since the day we married. So, what does that add up to?
I don't know.
Then let's find out. Is it the house? Does it bother you to live here because it was Olivia's?
No, it isn't the house. I was a friend of Olivia's. I was very fond of her. So why should I resent her house?
But you weren't very fond of her this last year after the accident. No one was.
She wouldn't let you be. But I was too sorry for her to resent anything she said or did.
What is it then? Do you feel guilty for marrying me so soon afterwards?
Ralph, I was in love with you long before Olivia died. I would never have admitted it to anyone. If she hadn't died, it would have stayed just that way. So, why should I feel guilty?
Guilt feelings usually aren't very reasonable.
Now you sound like the doctor.
I thought you said you hadn't seen him.
I went. I only said I hadn't because I didn't want to talk about it.
What did he say?
The usual mumbo-jumbo about guilt and repressions and all the rest of it.
He could be right, you know. Although if anyone has guilt feelings, it should be me. She'd still be alive if it hadn't been for me.
Ralph, Olivia committed suicide. We go to great lengths to avoid saying it, but she did. And you can't hold yourself responsible for it.
But I am responsible for it. If I hadn't given her that horse and there hadn't been that accident, she'd had no reason to do it.
That's not true.
But it is true. You know as well as I do why she did it. She couldn't face life living in a wheelchair.
But it was an accident. And you can't hold yourself responsible for that any more than you can for what she did afterwards.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we should stop talking about it. It brings it all back too vividly.
Maybe we shouldn't have married so soon. Maybe we should have waited. But we didn't. We have to work it out together. We will work it out, won't we?
Sure we will, honey. Sure we will.
I'm afraid to go to sleep because I know I'll dream it again.
There's only one thing to do. You're going back to that doctor. And you're going to keep going back until you find out what's at the bottom of this.
I know. I know I have to. No matter what it is, it can't be any worse than this. Murray Hill 38098, please.
Hello, Dr. Edwards' office.
Hello, this is Mrs. Ralph Jason. Could the doctor see me sometime this afternoon?
Well, must it be today?
Yes, it's very urgent.
Well, his only available time would be 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock this afternoon would be fine. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yes?
Mrs. Jason,
Yes, that's right.
we'd like to talk to you for a few minutes if we may. We're police officers.
Police officers? And you want to see me?
Yes, Mrs. Jason.
What on earth for?
I think it would be better if we went inside.
All right. Come in.
Thank you. I'm Captain Crane. This is Lieutenant Benson.
How do you do?
How do you do? Do you mind telling me what this is all about?
Not at all. We've been assigned to look into the death of your husband's first wife, Olivia Jason.
Well, then it's my husband you'll want to see, but he won't be back for about an hour.
No, it's you we want to talk to.
But I don't understand. There was an inquest held at the time of her death.
That's true, but there have been some new developments since then.
You're not serious.
I'm afraid I am. You were a friend of the late Mrs. Jason's, weren't you?
Yes,
Before the accident as well as afterwards.
yes, but I...
We merely want an opinion. As someone who knew her quite well, would you say that she was the sort of person who would commit suicide?
Well, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that question. I don't know what sort of person commits suicide.
Suppose we put it in a different way. Were you surprised when it happened?
Yes, I was.
Why?
Well, it's hard to say exactly. I mean, on the surface, she seemed to have reason enough.
You mean because of the accident?
Well, yes, it must be pretty frightening to know that she'll never walk again. But I always had the feeling that Olivia wasn't as miserable as she seemed.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I'm not sure I do myself. But after the accident, Olivia could say and do anything she pleased. And nobody would come back at her because they felt sorry for her. She could punish Ralph every minute of every hour, and he'd take it. It gave her a sort of power, and I think she enjoyed using it.
And why did she commit suicide?
Well, I don't know. I suppose it's possible in a moment of depression.
Anything's possible. Mrs. Jason, to use your own words, I understand that you did come back at her, not once, but on several occasions.
Who told you that?
That's not the point. The question is, did you or didn't you quarrel with her?
Well, you couldn't avoid quarreling with Olivia after the accident. But no matter how angry you got, you always held back. That's what I meant before.
What did you quarrel about?
I don't think that's anybody's business but my own.
Wasn't it about the way she was treating her husband, a man you were in love with?
I refuse to answer that question, or any others for that matter. I think this has gone quite far enough.
Not quite. There's one more question which you will have to answer.
What is it?
Olivia Jason died of neotropine poisoning.
I know that.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you know that neotropine occurs in several patent medicines, including eye drops.
I know that, too.
Mrs. Jason, is there anything wrong with your eyes?
No,
Why, then, a week before Olivia Jason died, did you purchase eye drops?
I didn't.
I see. Well, in that case, I'll have to ask you to come along with us.
Are you arresting me?
Yes, I am.
For what?
Suspicion of murder. The murder of Olivia Jason. Okay, start the minute.
All right, girls, come on. Hold the chatter now.
Well?
There's the third lady.
Mrs. Jason, step out, please. Mrs. Jason.
Third girl, step forward.
You sure?
I wish it wasn't, but it's her, all right.
Okay, fine, Mr. Mason. We won't need you any longer right now. The rest can go. I'll bring Mrs. Jason to my office.
Come with me. You can take the rest back.
All right, girls, come on. Come on.
To realize the pharmacist made a positive identification.
I have nothing to say.
Why not? If you're innocent, why are you afraid to say anything?
Then, Now, look, Mrs. Jason. If you have a simple explanation of why you bought those eye drops, we'd like to hear it.
I'd like to speak to my husband, if I may, please.
I'm afraid that's impossible.
You mean I have no legal rights? You can just hold me here without seeing anyone?
No, you can call your lawyer if you wish. But it would be much better for you in the long run if you'd cooperate with us.
Well, I'd like to speak to my lawyer, please.
Okay. And for your sake, I hope he's a good one. Now, put this call through, please.
Please get me John Galt. No, I'm sorry. I don't remember the number. He's a lawyer in New York City.
You might as well get used to waiting, dear.
Oh, Letty, I'm sorry.
So long.
Well, I would have gotten here sooner, but I wanted to find out what this was all about first. I'd like to talk to my client alone, please.
I'll wait outside.
Now, tell me what happened.
They think I killed Olivia.
Letty, I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm going to say next. But I want you to forget that we're friends. I want you to think of me as your lawyer. And as your lawyer, I want to know the truth, whatever it is.
John, you know I didn't do it.
Oh, I got nothing to worry about.
Haven't we? They seem to be pretty sure of themselves.
Well, they can't prove what didn't happen. As far as I can tell, the principal thing they have against you, aside from the fact that you married Ralph, which they think gives you a motive, is the druggist's identification of you. Now, did you buy the medicine?
No.
Now, are you sure? You could have a dozen innocent reasons for having bought it.
I said I didn't buy it.
Letty, I don't want to doubt your word, but you could be saying that out of fear, out of panic that you might be misunderstood. Now, we can't have any lies between us.
I did not buy it.
All right. Now, it's our job to find out who did.
Well, Olivia bought it herself. She must have. Well, surely you don't doubt she committed suicide.
Well, the police were never able to trace any purchase of neotropine to her, even then. Now, that could be the main reason why they never really dropped this case, even after the verdict of suicide.
John, what's going to happen? Can they convict me on just that man's identification?
Well, they might have some other things up their sleeve, but the case will turn on that point. There's no doubt about it. Now it's up to Ralph and me to trace the purchase of it to Olivia herself. If we can do that, we'll knock the pins out from under him.
If only you could.
Well, we have to.
Can they keep me here?
Well, the DA's against releasing you on bail, but I'm working on it. We'll see what happens.
When can I see Ralph?
Oh, he's outside now.
John, thank you.
I'm afraid it won't be a very long visit.
It doesn't matter, just to see him.
Now, don't you worry. Everything's going to be all right.
I hope so.
Ralph?
Letty.
Oh, Ralph. Ralph.
Are you all right, honey?
Oh, hold me, hold me.
Why didn't you tell him, Letty? Why on earth did you tell him?
I couldn't.
Well, you're going to. Right now. I'd have told him myself, except that I didn't know what you'd said, and I was afraid of making it worse for you.
We've only got a few minutes, and we've got to decide what to do.
There's nothing to decide. You're going to tell him the truth, that you bought the drops from me.
No, don't you see? That'll only make them think that we planned it together.
He'll do no such thing. The chief point they have against you is that you bought them when you didn't need them. But I do. I can prove that. They couldn't convict me on that kind of evidence.
They might not be able to convict you, but we'd live the rest of our lives under suspicion.
If you think I'm going to let you go through this so that I won't have to...
No, that's not the reason. What good will it do if we're both arrested? Don't you see, our only chance is for you to find out where Olivia got the poison.
Honey, we tried it at the time it happened.
But we've got to try again. Now, Olivia must have got it someplace. She couldn't walk far, even on crutches, so she must have taken a cab to buy it somewhere out of the neighborhood. Now, certainly the driver would remember her.
Yeah, he might, but I doubt it. 8 months is a long time.
Ralph, you've got to try.
Letty, I can't let you do this. I can't let you stay here like this.
You must. Ralph, if you say anything, I'll admit that I bought them. I'll say that you're doing it to protect me.
Are you out of your mind? Letty, listen to me.
Time's up.
I mean it, Ralph.
All right. I'll try. But not for long, Letty. Not for very long.
Yes, Miss Jason consulted me. Just once. Yes, I know. I've followed it in the papers.
Well, could you come to Brookfield to see her?
Well, I'll be happy to if you think I can be of any help.
She needs all the help she can get. You may have some way of getting through to her. Anything, Doctor, just so she'll start telling me the truth.
All right, I'll get the first train out this afternoon.
Good, I'll be seeing you then. Oh, and thank you, Doctor.
It's quite all right. Bye.
Letty, you've got to. He's going to a lot of trouble.
I won't see him. I don't know why you had to bring him into it at all.
Because he's a psychiatrist and you consulted him, I thought he might be able to persuade you to be honest with me.
I have been honest with you.
Letty, listen to me. We go to trial in a week. Now, you won't see Ralph. There are things he wants to ask you, important things, things that might help us, but no, you won't see him. You refuse Dr. Edwards. You won't tell me whatever it is you're hiding. Don't you realize how serious this is? We have no defense at all.
We still have a week before the trial. Anything could happen in a week.
Like what?
Well, Ralph might find out where Olivia got the poison.
He's had a dozen private detectives working on it, as well as himself. If he hasn't found it now, he's not going to find it.
He might.
Well, what if he doesn't? What happens if he doesn't?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
I'm sorry, John. I can't take much more.
Letty, look at me. Don't you realize I'm only trying to help you? But I can't with my hands tied behind my back, and that's what it's like when I can't have the facts.
I'm sorry, John. I realize I'm making it more difficult for you. But wait a little longer. Please wait just a little longer.
What are you waiting for, Letty?
I'm not sure. Maybe a miracle. They say they still happen.
That the defendant, Letty Jason, had both access and motive, both desire and opportunity to administer this poison to Olivia Jason. We are prepared to prove to you, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the defendant, Letty Jason, did in fact carry out her intent to murder Olivia Jason, that she cold-bloodedly poisoned this helpless woman who looked upon her as a friend because she stood in her way. For as long as Olivia Jason lived, Ralph Jason was out of the defendant's reach, so Olivia had to die. There could be no mercy for such a woman. The state asks that you bring back a verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree.
Letty, you sure threw the book at her. He wants to be the next governor.
Your Honor, I'm ready to call my first witness. However, with the court's permission, I would like to have a few moments delay.
Very well. Proceed when you're ready, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Miss Jason. I'm sorry I was delayed.
It was nice of you to come at all. I appreciate it.
I may be able to do something, although quite frankly, I can't imagine what.
I don't know myself, but at this point, I'm clutching at straws.
Oh, will you give me a pot of tea? Yes.
We're ready to proceed, Your Honor.
I'll call your first witness.
Mrs. Hannah Fields.
Mrs. Hannah Fields. Mrs. Hannah Fields.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
State your full name and address, please.
Hannah Fields.
Louder, please.
Hannah Fields, 852 Fairfield Drive.
Take a seat, please.
Mrs. Fields, you were employed as a cook by the late Mrs. Jason, were you not?
Yes, sir, for 5 years.
You left her employ before she died, is that right?
That's right, sir.
Would you mind telling us why?
Well, sir, I don't like to speak about the dead, but I swore to tell the truth. And the truth is she never was an easy woman, even before the accident. But afterwards, well, you just couldn't do a thing to save your soul that was right.
Mm-hmm. And yet you stayed with her a considerable time after the accident.
Only because Mr. Jason asked me to. You couldn't say no to anything Mr. Jason asked. He was too nice.
But you left eventually in spite of his request.
Well, she kept getting worse all the time, and there's just so much a person can take. I just couldn't stand it.
I understand. But before you left, you overheard several.
Objection. Prosecution is leading the witness.
Sustained. Rephrase your question, Mr. Clark.
Very well, Your Honor. Mrs. Fields, would you be kind enough to tell the court of any incident you know that occurred between the late Mrs. Jason and the defendant? Well?
Well, they were friends. She used to come and see Mrs. Jason all the time.
By she, you mean the defendant, the second Mrs. Jason?
Yes, sir. She was Miss Knowles then.
Did they ever quarrel?
Yes,
Often?
a couple of times.
About what?
About the way Mrs. Jason treated Mr. Ralph. And Miss Knowles was right. I never saw anyone so mean to a person as Mrs. Jason was to Mr. Ralph. It was
Just
perfectly...
answer the questions, if you please.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
That's quite all right. Now, did they always quarrel about the same thing?
Yes, sir. Always about Mr. Ralph.
Thank you, Mrs. Fields. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Gauld, do you wish to question the witness?
No question.
You may step down, Mrs. Fields.
I heard Olivia say it with my own ears. She said, "You're in love with him, but he's my husband. He'll be my husband as long as I live."
Objection. This testimony is hearsay.
I agree with counsel, Your Honor. I'll withdraw my question and move that her answer be stricken from the records. And do you see that customer in this room?
Yes, sir. The lady who bought the eye drops is in the courtroom now.
Would you point her out to the court, please?
That lady there, the defendant.
Thank you. Now, there's just one more question. Was that bottle clearly marked poison?
Why, yes, sir. Right on the label it said, poison, for external use only.
There's no hope, is there? It's all circumstantial, but they'll convict me, won't they?
That's a question Mr. Galt can answer better than I.
They will. Unless we're able to come up with something. And the only thing we can come up with right now is the truth.
Mrs. Jason, do you know the truth?
Yes, I know the truth.
Well, it's about time.
Just a moment. Is all this that's been happening what you were afraid of? Did you expect something like this?
Yes, I suppose so.
And that's what was behind the curtain in the dream you told me about. Your arrest, the trial.
Well, if it was, I wouldn't still be dreaming the same dream, would I?
Are you still dreaming it?
Yes.
Then whatever it is must not have happened yet. Mrs. Jason...
Doctor, I know you think this is important, but the most important thing right now is that I get a few straight answers. You said you know the truth. What is the truth, Letty?
Can you call Ralph tomorrow as a witness for me?
Ralph, why?
Because he can testify to the truth.
Are you telling me that Ralph knows something that would clear you and he hasn't said so?
I wouldn't let him.
Wouldn't let him? Why?
Because it won't clear me. All it'll do is create a reasonable doubt, I think you call it, and I wanted more than that. I wanted both of us to be free and clear of all suspicion once and for all.
You bought those eye drops for your husband, didn't you?
Yes. He has a tendency to chronic iritis, so he had a perfectly innocent reason for wanting them.
Yes, and if you had told me this in the beginning, we might even have prevented it coming to trial. Right now, we stand a very good chance of having the jury believe you planned this whole thing together. Now, don't look that way, Letty. I didn't mean to frighten you. It was such a dumb thing for the two of you to do.
It was my idea. Ralph was against it from the beginning.
Well, I should think so.
If Mr. Jason testifies tomorrow that she bought the eye drops for him, they can't possibly convict her, can they?
I don't think so. It's what happens afterwards that bothers me. The case will be wide open.
If it puts Ralph in any danger to testify, I don't want him to get on the stand.
He has to testify. We have no choice in the matter.
John, did you...
Letty, it isn't a question of whether people are going to talk or not. If there's gossip and speculation, that's too bad. But you'll be free. That's the only important thing.
But don't you see? They'll say we planned it together and we'll never be able to prove it isn't true. Our only chance was to find out where Olivia got the medicine she took.
Well, isn't there a possibility she got hold of Ralph's? That's the simplest explanation.
The bottle was still full after we found Olivia.
Did you keep the bottle?
Yes, Ralph has it put away someplace.
All right, Letty, I want you to get a good night's sleep. You're going to need it. I want you to testify after Ralph tomorrow.
John, do I have to?
I want you to.
Oh, all right, but I dread it. I feel so guilty just because I've been accused.
Would you like me to ask him to give you something to help you to sleep?
Oh, no, I'm tired enough to sleep. But if you could ask him to give me something so I won't dream, I'd take that in a minute.
We haven't come up with a drug like that yet, but we're working on it, you can be sure.
Well, I'll be your first customer. Well, anyway, now that it's all out in the open, maybe I won't dream. Maybe tonight I'll be able just to sleep.
Ralph, Jason. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name and address.
Ralph Jason, 865 North Ridgeway.
Take a seat, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Jason, during the months since the death of your first wife, you have attempted to trace the source of the poison which killed her, have you not?
I have?
Without success.
I'm afraid so.
But you needed time to conduct this search.
Yes.
And for that reason, you have withheld certain information until this time with regards to the purchase of that same medicine by the defendant.
Your Honor, are we to assume from counsel's last question that his client admits to making this purchase?
Is that what you wish the court to assume, Counselor?
We admit to the purchase, Your Honor, because we have no reason not to. It was a completely innocent act on her part. She was buying the eye drops for Mr. Jason, who suffers from chronic iritis and needed them.
Quiet in the courtroom.
Proceed, Counselor.
Is that not true, Mr. Jason?
No, I'm afraid it isn't.
Order!
I knew she poisoned Olivia all the time.
That does it. His own wife, too.
This
spoke his piece like a little man.
Quiet in the courtroom.
I don't understand, Mr. Jason.
I'm afraid I don't either.
Are you telling this court that you didn't ask your present wife, Letty Jason, to buy those eye drops a week before the death of your first wife?
I didn't ask her to buy them for me, that week or any other time. Why should I? There's nothing wrong with my eyes.
And if I put your wife on the stand, then she testifies that she clearly remembers...
Your Honor, I object. I don't believe Letty would testify to that. She knows it isn't true.
Order in the court. Be still.
May it please the court, defense requests a recess.
This court is recessed for 1 hour. Remove the jury.
Everyone stand.
He had no other choice, Hero.
But, Mabel, I'm telling you, I gotta leave right now. Virginia May's going to the dentist, and I'm picking her up at school. Oh, yes, they're much straighter now. You can only eat something besides sweets all day.
Come on, lady, hurry it up, will you?
Wait a minute, talk
Please,
louder,
move
Mabel.
a
I
little
can't
faster,
hear
lady.
you. No,
Look,
of
lady,
course
if I'm
I'm
gonna
not
fall,
here
I'm
with a
gonna leave
man.
my job here.
Of course not. What? Huh? Mabel?
Here,
Mabel?
try this phone. It must be much better. There we are. Oh, here's a dime.
Ever-loving Ralph just gave his little bride a great send-off to the hot seat. Yeah, he knew what he was supposed to say, but while he was struggling with his conscience, giving her that forgive me, honey look, she was staring at him with that soulful expression. Well, he finally got his message across. She may be his little bunny, but she tells lies, bad ones. What'd she do? She went out like a light. Yeah, we're recessed now. No chance for a mistrial. Well, what else can the verdict be? First-degree murder premeditated. Sure. You'll be the first to know.
I'm all right now.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Miss Jason, I don't know what to say.
There's nothing to say, Dr. Edwards. It's all very clear. The only surprising thing is that he was able to fool me for so long. One thing I never doubted was his word, at least not consciously.
You loved him very much, didn't you?
So much that even though I knew he killed Olivia, I wouldn't let myself believe it. In a way, I guess I deserve what's happened.
No, that isn't true. But, Mrs. Jason, are you very sure about all this? You've been disturbed for months now.
You think I killed Olivia and I'm making it all up?
I don't know what to think. You must realize it's very difficult to believe that any man would do what you're accusing your husband of having done.
You ought to know better than anyone what people will do out of fear. He's panic-stricken.
You're very calm about it.
It's as though something has finally happened that I've known for a long, long time was going to happen. There wasn't anything I could do about it.
Miss Jason, I want to ask you just one question.
Only one?
Yes. Would a man who just done what you claim Mr. Jason has done be able to face the person he's done it to?
I don't know what you mean.
I mean, facing you would be the last thing in the world you'd expect him to want.
Does he want to?
Yes. Why should he want to see you, Mrs. Jason?
He wants to ask me to forgive him. It's just like him.
Do you want to see him?
No.
I think you should.
Why? What good will it do?
Mrs. Jason, things are going to be pretty difficult for you for the next few weeks. If what you claim is true, you're going to have to hold on to the reality of it. I think you should have it out with him. It'll give you a stronger hold, at least for yourself.
All right, Dr. Edwards, I'll see him. If you think that's best.
I can't believe it. I can't believe she actually did it. No wonder she's been so disturbed all these months. Nightmares and all the rest of it.
John, what are we going to do? How are we going to save her?
You still want to, in spite of what you know now?
I love her. I don't believe she was responsible when she did it.
Well, it'll be pretty hard after what's happened to convince a jury of that.
But, John, you had... Will she see me?
Yes, but she insists that her story's true.
Well, what else can she do now?
Well, that depends on whether or not she admits the truth to you.
I think she will. May I see her alone? Letty, I want you to believe one thing. I didn't mean it to be this way. All along, I was going to tell the truth. This morning, when I got on that witness stand, I couldn't. I didn't have the guts. They're never as hard on a woman as they are on a man. And we can still beat this. All you have to do is enter a plea of temporary insanity.
Poor Ralph. You'll have to live with this all the rest of your life. How could you kill? How could you find the courage to kill?
I didn't want to do it. I stood it as long as I could, but she wouldn't give me a moment's peace. She drove me to it.
And then there was the money.
I didn't do it for the money.
But you did inherit it.
Yes, but I didn't do it for that. She wanted me to kill her. She didn't want to live, but she didn't have the courage to commit suicide. She had to drive me into killing her.
You've already made yourself believe that, have you?
It's true.
Olivia didn't want to die. In spite of the fact that she was crippled, she didn't want to die.
How can you know that?
She enjoyed running roughshod over everyone. That's why, even in the beginning, I couldn't really believe the suicide verdict.
Letty, you've got to promise me that you... You knew that thing was on.
No, Ralph, I didn't.
Lying.
No, Ralph!
Jason! Don't do anything more. Let's get this down on paper. I guess we both made a few mistakes.
It was Dr. Edwin's idea. You wait here. I have to talk to the judge. I'll be back.
Goodbye.